Why can't I be the MVP of the league? Why can't I be the best player in the league?
I truly have enjoyed being your quarterback.
Right between the eyes. A spectacular move. Too big, too strong, too fast, too good.
Can't do what we do. We play like we play.
Can you feel that? That thing that's beating in your doggone chest right now. Can you feel that? Can you feel what's about to happen on this field, man?
What is up, diehards? Wes Monell is in the building for Awol Sports. It's summertime. We're almost to the NFL season, fantasy football. By the way, I hope you've been mock drafting. I want you to be a champion in 2019. And I tell you, for years I've been using fantasyfootballcalculator.com. I love it. They're not paying me to say this. This is just me passing it along. I've been using it for years. They keep getting better and better. They got a phone app. Got my buddies on it. Sometimes it'll be you and other people in the draft. Sometimes just you, and the rest is computerized controls. It's all good. Get your practice in. Know what you're going to do at number 1, 2, 3, all the way to 8, 10, 12, 14, however many teams are in your leagues. However many. Get the practice in. You use FFC, I'm telling you, you will know who's going to be where you're drafting. For the most part, you know, the range, there's going to be some people that might reach for someone, or, you know, that might have the same idea as you, as who a sleeper really is. So I get that. That is a reality, but at least you'll know kind of like a strike zone. Feel it out. Feel it out. Get comfortable with who's where. You'll notice the changes in rankings. I've already noticed, been doing it since after the Super Bowl all the way to today, a lot of changes. Of course with the draft, but I mean with the veteran players. But yeah, FFC, I'm telling you, download the app, hit the website, whatever. Get it in. Today we're going to talk some headlines, give you a little analysis on each one. The pass interference rule. Are you a fan? Not a fan? We'll find out. And then some red zone observations when I was scouring through the 2018 statistics, particularly with quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers. We'll hit that as well. As for the headlines, Tyreke Hill's looming suspension. Does this make Kansas City a playoff team if he misses, let's just throw this number out, 8. If he misses 8 games, does KC make the playoffs? I don't think so. I really don't. Yeah, they started to move on from Kareem Hunt last season, who's now with the Browns, and now they're adjusting with Tyreke Hill's looming suspension. Not really a thing yet, but I'm pretty sure we're all on the same page here. It's going to be X amount of games, and I'm going to go with 8. I highly doubt it's 4. Or, you know, I highly doubt it's less than 8. I think Tyreke Hill, I see him returning. I mean, I don't see a reason for the Chiefs, barring, you know, some unforeseen information or something new, that, oh, we're just going to cut Tyreke Hill like we did Kareem Hunt. I don't see that in this particular situation. But, of course, you know how it goes, and that remains to be seen. I do know that in fantasy football, if you're going to count on Sammy Watkins, I'd kind of, you know, take a detour. We've seen this before, whether it be in KC last season. He's always hampered by something, and, you know, a hamstring. It's just been his career. I like to give guys the benefit of the doubt over time that they can work through it, but I've seen it too many times. With Watkins in particular, back to his days with the Rams. And then there is a rookie, Mecole Hardman. He's got the speed. Andy Reid found another guy with speed. And, you know, even if it's only for half a season, you would think a playoff team like the Chiefs, a high-scoring team, super athletic quarterback, amazing throws downfield, great coach in Andy Reid who calls the offensive plays. You would think the Chiefs can get by, right? I mean, you would. I mean, they didn't lose Mahomes. The thing is, it's the whole picture. I don't doubt Andy Reid as a coach. I acknowledge Mahomes as an individual player, but you got to remember this is going to be his second season playing. Third in the league because he redshirted year 1 behind Alex Smith, only played in week 17. Then last year, MVP campaign. Fortunately, due to health, he did in 2018 what Carson Wentz was hindered from doing in 2017. Phenomenal quarterbacks, but they are going to have their ups and downs. The roller coaster ride that is not only being a professional athlete, but an NFL quarterback. So yeah, the Chiefs, Sammy Watkins has some speed, has experience. Mecole Hardman, rookie, ran 4.33. I believe it was 5th best at the combine. I mean, as far as Hardman, his pro comp on one of the pro comps I saw on him was Randall Cobb, fast player. He's been an outside receiver. Cobb's now more of a slot receiver. So if you're getting someone like that, I consider it a good draft pick. I do. It may take some time. It may take some time for the Chiefs to adapt. And this is all predicated around the absence of Tyreke Hill. Yes, you have Damian Harris, who showed that he could play well in a short amount of time. We didn't see a lot of Damian Harris. Of course, he's going to have to step up and be a consistent runner for them. And then there's Travis Kelce, the best tight end in the game. I do think the Chiefs miss the playoffs if it's 8 games, at least 8 games, that Tyreke Hill will not be on the field for them. So, there's another receiver that is dealing with a suspension named Josh Gordon, who's still under contract with the Patriots. So a question I got was, who will play more games this season, Tyreke Hill or Josh Gordon? And when you look at it in fantasy football, you would think Tyreke Hill gets drafted late, whereas Josh Gordon perhaps goes undrafted. There's no word expected. There's no timeline expected on Josh Gordon playing football in 2019. So you can't draft him. Unless you have some IR spot that will allow you to put him there, which I did use last season. Came in handy. Might want to add it to your leagues if you don't have it. I would say, at best, Josh Gordon's going to play 8 games. At best. Which would be equal to what I have Tyreke Hill playing. 8 games. Of course Tyreke Hill is the one you want. But the question here is, who plays more games? You may have your own thoughts on this, but my answer is, they both play 8. And there was a poll, or actually a ranking, NFL fan bases. And the top 4 were Patriots at 1, followed by the Cowboys, Eagles, and Giants, all of the NFC East. So I will say, if we're talking all-time NFL history, I strongly disagree with the Patriots being in this list. Especially number 1, let alone top 10. Let alone top half of the league. The Cowboys, America's team, the largest fan base. But what makes them the best? I guess that, in Texas, military, and then in the 90s, America's team, and so many adopted them. And everywhere you live, most places you live, there's a Cowboys fan, a Cowboys jersey. There's always one of them out there. But when you find one, you find quite a bit. You find more than several, more than you probably want to. So yeah, the largest fan base by far. Philadelphia Eagles, they travel really well. They're at home, they're rowdy. Santa Claus can't even win them over. I bring that up as a joke because, yeah, it was true in the 60s or whatever, but we're far removed from those days. I actually kind of hate it when they bring that up, so I kind of just threw that out there to poke fun at it. Not really a fan of talking 40 years back. However, I know I'm talking NFL history with fan base rankings. It's a different story. So, the Eagles, they travel well. The Giants, they travel fairly well. I don't run into a lot of Giants fans. I know some. And that's the top 4, all in the Northeast minus America's team. I gotta say, I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers should be on this list. I'd take out the New England Patriots. Probably leave Dallas and Philly. And I'd definitely take out the Giants. I would. Yeah, there's some real home field advantages in Seattle, New Orleans, and Kansas City. The decibels are just so outrageous, you can't even hear yourself speak. But they don't really travel and follow their teams and go on the road. And that's part of it. Same with the Browns. Very loyal, very dedicated, years and years and years of not the greatest football. Things are turning around. Things are turning around for them. Happy for the dog pound. I wouldn't put them on this list either, along with the other 3 places with enormous home field advantages. None of the LA teams should be on this list. I don't think the Bay team should be on this list either, although the Raiders probably make the top 10, if not top 7. So far I have 3 that I'm sticking with, and that's Pittsburgh, Dallas, Philadelphia. Is there a 4th team that's obvious to you? I'm not talking Green Bay Packer obvious, because they're very similar to the Browns. Except you will run into some Green Bay Packer fans out in Southern California, where I'm at. It's not the Jets, Dolphins, Bills. It's not those 3 teams. That's the AFC East right there. We go over to the AFC North. We already said Pittsburgh. I don't think it's the Ravens. We already talked about the Browns. It's not the Bengals. Moving over to AFC South, you got the Jaguars, Colts, Texans, Titans. They don't make this top 4. We're still searching for that last team here, guys. AFC West, we already kind of slightly skimmed past the Raiders. There's the Broncos. I'm gonna hold on to the Broncos while we go through the rest of these teams, because I think they might have that 4th spot as of right now. Going through the teams, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos, Chiefs, talked about all 4. Now, shifting over to the NFC, we already did the East basically, aside from the Redskins, who aren't the 4th team on this list. So right now it's still Denver. NFC West, we have the Rams, the Niners, the Cardinals, the Seahawks. Moving over to the South, we have the Panthers, the Buccaneers, the Saints, and the Falcons. Okay. And then the NFC North. I think Denver may have competition over here. Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago. I'm giving the slight edge. Actually, a bigger edge. I'm giving the edge to Chicago here. Number 4. They make the top 4 with Philly, Dallas, and Pittsburgh. Throw in Chicago, and to round out the top 5, then I'll throw in Denver. If I have to specify an order, I do think traveling fans should be bumped up on this list. I don't think the largest fan base means the best fan base. 2 different stories. Most Cowboys fans are not really involved. It's just a reality. Kind of like here in Southern California, most Charger fans weren't involved. They didn't go to every game. They didn't watch every game. Some games were blacked out. That will never be the case with the Dallas Cowboys. And they do have people that live all over the country. That's tough to compete with, tough to contend with. I think Philadelphia has a huge fan base, not nearly the size of Dallas, but they travel better. They do travel better. Pittsburgh, they travel. They're crazy at home. I think I'm putting Pittsburgh at 1. Chicago at 2. Philadelphia at 3. Dallas at 4, and then Denver at 5. It could be interchangeable, just threw numbers in front of teams. So one more time, I got Pittsburgh at 1, Chicago 2, Philadelphia 3, Dallas 4, Denver 5 for the best fan bases in the National Football League. Moving along, rookie head coach Matt LaFleur over in Green Bay. He says he's drawing the most from his days as a quarterback coach in Atlanta with then offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan. He says that they normally don't give quarterbacks autonomy at the line of scrimmage. They don't normally change plays, audible, kill, maybe just kill actually. That's kind of a must, but we're talking about Aaron Rodgers here. He feels he's finally not in a mundane offense. He feels he's got Devontae Adams, Jimmy Graham, and some young receivers that have another year of experience under their belts. 2 guys in the backfield, solid. Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams. A good O-line, especially when those bookends are healthy. Not to digress into the whole depth chart of the Green Bay Packers, but come on, we're talking Aaron Rodgers here. The only thing that's been troublesome to him is gone. Mike McCarthy, former head coach. Yeah, it's crazy. Everyone wants to talk about Carson Wentz and his injuries, and we just got over Andrew Luck's couple of years. Tough couple of years for Andrew Luck. But Aaron Rodgers, I mean, yeah, those guys have something to prove. Wentz has to prove he can be healthy for a season again because he hasn't done it since his rookie year. Andrew Luck's got to show he can put back-to-back seasons together. Aaron Rodgers is getting nicked up every year in his mid-30s. New offense, I think, will benefit. I think Matt LaFleur and Rodgers will come to the conclusion and the compromise that he is a future Hall of Famer, and he will get full autonomy at the line of scrimmage. And Matt LaFleur, as a rookie head coach, better come in with that mindset of being on the same page as his quarterback. And I believe he will. MVP odds in order. It goes Patrick Mahomes, Carson Wentz, Andrew Luck. Would you take one of those quarterbacks to win MVP in 2019? Or would you take another position to snag that MVP award? Not defensively. We've clearly seen if J.J. Watt and Aaron Donald can't win Most Valuable Player, it's simply not going to happen. Wide receiver, we've seen Megatron. Highly doubtful. So unless you think a running back like Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel, Elliott, you think Todd Gurley bounces back to that level, Christian McCaffrey even, are you going to take a running back over a quarterback? I don't think most of you are. And if you are, I'm curious to see who you think is going to win that award. And now, if you're narrowing down the list to just quarterbacks, like I am, do you take Pat Mahomes, Carson Wentz, Andrew Luck? Do you take one of those 3 quarterbacks or the field? That's everybody else out there. That's Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, etc.? Are you taking the rest of the quarterback field to win MVP over the 3 younger quarterbacks, in Mahomes, Wentz, and Luck? We're talking about Mahomes, who just won MVP, Wentz, who should have won MVP, even with those missed games, still finished with more touchdowns than Tom Brady, who won the award. And Andrew Luck, who won Comeback Player of the Year, who's been an MVP candidate before. We're talking about a trio of sensational quarterbacks. And I'm going to take that group right there over the field, over any other position. So there's 3 categories. Those 3 quarterbacks, the rest of the quarterbacks in the league, and a different position. And I'm taking one of those 3 quarterbacks to win MVP this season. As of right now, the only other quarterback that I see creeping into this picture, and this isn't being short-sighted, this isn't seeing some update about MVP odds and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I think those 3 are going to win it, and not think about anybody else. You know how I roll. You know how we do it here, diehards. This is... We breathe football every day. We think about it, talk about it, look up stats, analyze ourselves, all the above. Well, at least I do. And maybe that's why you're listening, because you know that. Cool. Thank you. But yeah, the one quarterback I'll throw in there is Aaron Rodgers. I do buy that Green Bay has vastly improved defensively, and I do think a new offense will make their offense look a lot better. I just think it will. I know it will. And I think they're going to contend for the division again with the Bears. As of today, I do have Green Bay winning the division, but that's a conversation for another episode. But between the 3 I'm talking about here, I'm a little less high on Mahomes because of the circumstances around him, a year of film on him, a whole off season for defenses to see what he's done. Wentz and Luck have gone through that. And if you want to poke holes at Wentz, I'm going to tell you this. Go look on Pro Football Focus and see how good Carson Wentz is if you can't see it with your own 2 eyes, watching the games or checking out highlights. Wentz is the real deal. Hate on him for injuries that he can't control. It was a fluke against the Rams in the end zone. He wasn't standing in the pocket, holding the ball too long, getting hammered. He wasn't trying to juke someone down the field for extra yards. He dove into the end zone. He was already there. He was a couple yards out. Had one defender hit him, it would have been a normal tackle and a touchdown. Ref picks his arms up. Game of inches. That second player, if he doesn't sandwich him, if he's like half a second late or even half a second early, the injury doesn't occur. Andrew Luck, shoulder injury, another year removed from it. I think you'll see more connections to T.Y. Hilton down the field. You saw a lot more downfield throws and a lot more accurate throws by Andrew Luck in the second half of the season, and for good reason. And the Colts are for real. Even if you don't buy their defense, their offense is for real. The Colts are good. They're going to be in the playoff picture yet again. Andrew Luck's in the playoff picture every year he's healthy. And joining the show, Joey Balistreri. Joey B, what's going on, man?
What's going on, brother?
Hey, man. I know you're a diehard and you're into fantasy.
Big time.
Tell these diehards a little bit about you, real quick.
Well, I'm originally from San Diego, California, born and raised. But my heart is now in Green Bay. Because the Chargers, as we're literally looking at the stadium right now, is empty.
It was Qualcomm.
Born and raised a Charger fan, but also was raised to be a Packer fan, so I went from 2 teams to 1. And I've played football my whole life, watched football my whole life, and then just until I think 2015, I got into fantasy, and it really changed the anatomy for me for football. You know what I mean? Not so much just like the the fanatic side of it, but how much like you can dive into each player for each role. It's made me appreciate it a lot more. I wish I actually loved football this in depth when the Chargers were still here, which fan of the team or fan of the players, not fan of the team.
Yeah.
Organization can,
The team bounced on the city.
Yep, absolutely. But I'm happy to be here, man. This is fun. This
Go
is
Pack
awesome.
Go, right?
Yeah, go Pack Go, baby.
I get it. All right, we'll go through some of these headlines real quick, and then just want your analysis on each thing.
Cool.
Starting with Tyreke Hill.
Oh, jeez.
Looming suspension. Kansas City went from playoff team.
The big question mark in the league.
Yeah, big question mark. So, a couple questions off this Tyreke Hill thing.
Okay.
If he's suspended, one, are they a playoff team?
Mm-hmm.
Two, where do you draft Tyreke Hill in fantasy football?
Okay, I'm going to scoot over this way.
Yeah.
One, the first question is, are they a playoff team? I think...
And let's throw the suspension number at 8.
8 games missed.
8
sure.
games. Let's just say it's 8.
Okay. Will they be a playoff team? Sure. I think they'll be a contention. I think what they had last year was obviously spectacular. As long as they have Kelsey, legitimately, and now that we've seen Mahomes and how well they played against above 500 teams, and how well they played against the Patriots and the Chargers and all these teams, yada yada yada. They're still going to be in some kind of contention, especially since we've agreed that Reed is one of the best coaches in the league, if not one of the greatest coaches of all time.
Hands down.
So I think Tyreke Hill, him missing, obviously is a huge loss, especially if it's 8 games.
Best deep threat in the game?
For sure, I would say. Definitely the fastest guy. Excuse me. Definitely the fastest guy. Definitely one of those guys like Julio, like Devontae Adams, like DeAndre Hopkins. When they are on the field, it's like, this is our guy. Double coverage, bring the safety in, whatever it is. You're adjusting. Now, I think it's not going to hinder them as much as I think. I don't think that's going to be the reason why they're going to be out of playoff contention as much as the way that they've developed on this offseason. Okay. Losing key defenders. Their defense was the reason why they lost those 4 games.
Yeah, they went from home run defense, leading the league in sacks, and now you lose your best pass rushers.
Yeah.
Justin Houston.
D Ford. Yeah. It's
Eric Berry.
Mm-hmm.
Moves on.
It's a bunch of things that obviously will give a team the make or break. I think obviously losing arguably the best deep threat guy.
Clearly.
That's your biggest thing. But I think there's something bigger that will make them be, not as elite as they were last year. And I do think it's because they lost Houston, they lost D Ford.
Kareem Hunt.
Exactly.
That's another
big
weapon
thing
Mahomes
too. Yeah.
doesn't have.
I think Damian Williams will have a larger, value. I think Kelsey will have a larger value. And I think we'll see Sammy Watkins step up and stuff. But I do think, I do think that they may still be in contention. Just I don't think they'll go 12-4. I see them going maybe 10-6 or something.
Oh,
9-7.
So
still good. I'd say in the hunt. I say the Chargers are taking either that or Denver. But another subject. And then the second question was,
where do you draft Tyreke Hill? Let's parlay that. Where do you draft Tyreke Hill and Damian Williams?
Okay. See, and we've spoke about, for me personally, how much I love Damian Williams.
Yeah, you do.
I do.
I'm not as high on him.
Right. I'm not saying he should be drafted first, second, third, fourth, fifth for RBs. I do think he's a top 12 RB, I would say.
So round 2 or 3?
Mid 2, 2-4, 2-5, I would say. I mean, you're getting a guy that didn't step in and, it wasn't like he stepped in and it was like, okay, let's get you adjusted. He came in and he blew the doors off of the whole building. I mean, we saw his stats, and that's exactly why I'm glad you brought up the first topic of Tyreke Hill, because if Tyreke Hill's out, they're going to need guys to step up, which brings what I said earlier. It's going to bring his stock even higher. There's no way it doesn't. I mean, if he's as dominant as he was running and catching, it's only going to do better, especially since Mahomes loves and Kansas City loves. I mean, Kareem Hunt was fantastic for a reason.
On the ground and through the air.
Exactly.
They utilize him in every way.
Yeah. So for me coming into the season, there might be some. If I'm in a buy-in league, I'm probably not going to, especially if he gets at least 8. I don't see him doing any less than 8. Maybe it's 7, but I think it's 8. I think it's for sure half the season. I'm projecting it to be 10, maybe 11, maybe 12 games. Not worth it for me.
He's on your blacklist.
He's on my blacklist.
Okay.
Unless, basically, obviously, if I'm in the 14th, 15th round, and he's on the board, if people are saying the same thing as me, and I've got, legitimate people, and maybe the next thing I need is maybe a second or third QB or a second tight end. If I have all of my T's crossed and all my I's dotted, I might go for him. Only in the aspect of it being...
If he's fallen and everyone's doing the same thing.
Yeah, because the thing is, teams can be as punishable as they want, but the NFL's punishment is obviously the ultimate... when that comes down, when that guillotine comes down, it comes down hard. And look what happened to Kareem Hunt last year. Now, I mean, will he ever play really ever again because of that? That stain on your name. You know what I mean?
Cleveland hopes so, but I feel you.
Yeah, Cleveland definitely hopes so. But I would say personally, if anyone needs that voice, I wouldn't go for him. Obviously, it's your team. You do what you want.
Exactly.
I think it's just too much of a risk. I think you have a better chance of drafting Sammy Watkins before Tyreke Hill, obviously, to get good value.
And if you're listening to this, I value suspended players.
Mm-hmm.
I just do. Last year, drafted Julian Edelman, Mark Ingram.
Right.
I just do.
But those are 4 or 5.
True.
4 or 5 games, I believe, right?
True. Yeah. It depends on the round, the value. I'm not going to jump for him and be like, oh, cool, he's in the 3rd. Nah, not like that.
Yeah.
But maybe in the 8th.
Yeah.
Maybe as high as that. Maybe.
And not to go back real quick, but I mean, we knew when Julian Edelman came back and when Mark Ingram came back, they're going to be put right back in. When Kareem Hunt came back off of suspension, he got let go.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe the same thing happens with Tyreke Hill. Maybe as that suspension is rounding the corner, the team goes, man, you just lost us so much time here.
And maybe more information comes out.
Sure. Exactly.
So that's a fair point.
So
it is.
We'll see.
You want to hear something interesting about suspensions?
Yes. You've been hyping this up, and I'm very curious to see what this suspension is.
The first suspension in league history. Back in 1924, man.
Uh-huh.
All right, so catch this.
Oh, in NFL history.
In the league, I say league history because it changed.
Oh, right.
The NFL.
Right. Okay. So league history.
Yeah, league history. So there's a quarterback for the Chicago Cardinals at the time.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Art Foles.
Right.
Art Foles.
Okay.
Not spelled the same way as Nick Foles.
Right.
But so this guy hires a group of high school football players to play for the opponent that week, the Milwaukee Badgers. He gets away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Bunch of high schoolers on the Badgers playing against the Cardinals against his team.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago and Foles, they win 58-0. 58-0.
Which, think about back then, was not out of the realm of possibility.
Right.
A lot of the highest scoring games of all time were back then. You know?
So there's no way, think about it, there's no way you can pull off, oh, we're just going to hire some high schoolers and we're just going to ball all over them for our record. Because back at that time, 1924-25, the champion was the team with the best record in the season.
Right.
That's how things went.
Right.
They were neck and neck with this team. We don't know these teams. I went to Wikipedia, and it's the Pottsville Maroons.
Mm-hmm.
And they were neck and neck with them. Granted, the whole best record in the regular season is one thing. I think the whole high schooler thing's another thing. Mm-hmm. And for that to be the first suspension of all time.
Right.
He at first, initially, they gave him a lifetime ban. They reduced that to 1 year.
Oh, really?
1 year. How do you go from lifetime to 1 year?
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm assuming maybe it's looking back at that time, I mean, that's almost 100 years ago.
That's crazy.
How much it's boggling to think about how much obviously the game has advanced since then, but also, I mean, how niche it was back then. I mean, football players, I mean, yeah, obviously not off the top of my head, I'm not a historian with it, didn't get compared, like the margin of the cost of living back then to the salary to from then to now, there wasn't much of a market for it. It's like, why are we banning a guy if no one cares? But now, because I mean, the NFL is worth what, $8 billion or some ridiculous,
too much.
There's a ridiculous amounts of money to, you know, they get hundreds of millions of viewers on Super Bowls and stuff. It means something, you know.
Yeah.
So,
and for the record, that quarterback Foles threw a passing touchdown, ran for 2 touchdowns, and scored on a 45-yard blocked punt.
Yeah,
to the house.
Remember when back then every single player played every single position?
Play 2 ways, play multiple.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
a little fun fact for the day.
Insane. I didn't even mean to look for that. I was just like, oh, let me look at recent suspensions. And that was the first thing that popped up on the list.
Yeah, it's the first of them all. Yeah.
All right. So, one last thing on Tyreke Hill.
Okay.
Who plays more games this season?
Ooh.
Tyreke Hill or Josh Gordon?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. You know, I might say I might be legitimate and say they both play the equal amount of games, which is 0.
Wow.
I don't think Josh Gordon comes back. I don't think the league lets him. I think policies.
No credence into the whole Brady working with the Gordon.
No, I think that's just him having a guy who's free to throw the ball around to, and you have the ability of calling him and say, hey man, you know, I know you don't have any rules regulations because you're suspended or banned from the league.
He's still on the team technically.
Technically, right, obviously. And, you know, but I saw that and you know, raised an eyebrow or two, and it seems like it's of speculation, but I don't think. And same thing with Tyreke Hill. I think we're seeing, you know, the legitimacy of in the extremes of being reprimanded, right?
Right.
And I think Josh Gordon is one of those guys that's gotten off a couple of times a little bit easier than most people. I mean, this is his second time being banned or whatever it is, or suspended.
Multiple.
So, and I think Tyreke Hill, because it had to do with a child, and I think they're going to take it severely. I think the team drops him just like Kareem Hunt.
Wow.
I do. I really legitimately do think it. Especially since, if you've been reading, I mean, it's Thursday, the time that we're filming this, the 27th. They're going through these, you know, we're still pending. It usually means that they're trying to think about how severe the punishment's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if they say 16 games.
Damn.
You know what I mean?
Damn.
And then, you know, if he plays week 17, 18, whichever weeks go on for playoffs, who knows? But I think, especially teams like the Chiefs that have had history of people being problematic, they just get rid of them. They just get rid of them. You know, the gamble is, I mean, and they've taken more gambles.
It's a gamble for a reason.
Exactly. They've hold on to these guys, and it ends up screwing them. So I think the Patriots will do the same thing, especially since, you know, you just got Harris, right? You just got Julian Edelman for a full coming off an MVP, Super Bowl MVP game.
Yeah.
You know, you have him for a full season now, no 4-game suspension. And, you know, you have legitimacy in your game when it comes to the receptions and stuff. I don't see why they take a risk. I really don't.
All right.
Especially since when he came in, he obviously had production, but it's like, is the cream worth the crop for both of these guys? Not just for Gordon, not just for Hill, but for both of these guys in their own situations for the league. Is the cream worth the crop?
Wow, damn. 0 games for both.
0 games for both for me.
Got it. All right. We're gonna get closer to home here.
Okay.
Green Bay.
Oh baby.
Coach LaFleur, new guy in town.
Okay. Broken body, torn ACL.
He says he's kind of drawing from his days with Kyle Shanahan, one of my favorite coaches in the league.
Mm-hmm.
from their days together in Atlanta. LaFleur was the QB coach when Shanahan was the OC. He says his quarterbacks don't have autonomy at the line of scrimmage. They don't change plays. They don't audible. He's now coaching Aaron freaking Rodgers. Rodgers says he's the guy. He does whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And now there's no more mundane offense, so to speak, with Mike McCarthy. And I'm not saying Rodgers should be receptive to just running what he's told, because I think Rodgers has gotten to the point of he's a future Hall of Famer, that we should get the Brady treatment.
Sure.
How do you think that's going to play out between coach and QB?
So this is it's for the viewer. It's hard to obviously pick and choose what you think is good for a team or what's not good for a team when it comes to legitimacy between coach and quarterback, specifically coach and quarterback. That's one guy doing one position. You know, you have a whole line that's up to 6 guys, and you know, you have up to 2 tight ends. It's one singular person, right? So look at the history, at least for me. Whenever I think for the people, obviously I've aforementioned that I'm a Packers fan, but I think Rodgers, even though he has only 1 ring, he can go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Not many would disagree with that.
Because looking at it, right? His talent is his talents, obviously. Now, there's obviously going to be some hindrances, injuries, your player, your personnel, your coaching. But coaching is one of the most important things. As the topic I always bring up in the conversation of Brady being the greatest of all time, it's like you can't say that without saying Belichick is what made him fantastic. Because if you would rather have Brady coaching or Brady quarterbacking your team rather than Bill Belichick, you're crazy. I mean, let's just see how it all has gone into fruition on how the team is run in total. Same thing happens in Green Bay now. You have a guy who knows what he's doing. He has legitimized himself to being the best quarterback, you know, in modern era when it comes to specifics of things, and he knows how to run his team. He is the number 1 QB in his team. With McCarthy, it seemed like they were battling for control or whatever, which obviously, you know, your quarterback's usually the highest paid guy for a reason, right? He's the one he's your shot caller, especially someone who legitimizes himself to be as elite as Aaron Rodgers. Now, that's why I think quarterback coaches are so great. Like look at New England. I hate to keep bringing them up, but you know, the way that you have to operate when it comes to your elite players, especially quarterbacks, you have to have a relationship of trust, right? The quarterback has to trust his coach is leading the rest of his team and him, or quarterback coach or whoever it is, in the right direction. But there also needs to be trust in being able to go, okay, my guy knows what he's doing. Peyton Manning's arguably the greatest audible quarterback, shot caller, playmaker, on the spot, boom, boom, boom. And he had a whole bunch of coaches that were known notoriously as, hey, man, this is my team. But when you trust the process and you trust that quarterback to do whatever he needs to do to make the team prosper, I think you'll see a lot of success. And I think we'll see that with LaFleur, especially since it doesn't seem like LaFleur has much of an ego, or it seems like he's trying to burrow his way into being the top head coach of the whole entire league. He's just trying to be the best leader for that team within itself. So I think we'll see a huge value increase for Rodgers.
Nice, and I agree. I think the rookie head coach will,
especially an offensive coach too.
Yeah, offensive minded.
Yes,
that's what he does. That's
a guy
what
that spoon feeds his quarterbacks, and it's like, let's get this. Let's get this arguably the most important part of the whole entire offense, if not the most important part. Let's get it. Let's all the loose and screws. Let's get those tightened. All these things. I think we'll see a big change with Green Bay because of his offensive mind.
Agreed. As of today, I think they're a playoff team. So I think that way. And that was before I even knew you were a Packers fan. So.
I really hope so.
All right. So before you cut out here, so the NFL fan bases were ranked
Oh, jeez.
And I'm just going to give you the top 4.
Okay.
Number 1 was the Patriots.
Of course.
2, Cowboys. 3,
Bears?
Eagles.
Oh, wow. Eagles. Okay.
And 4, Giants.
Wow.
That's 3
okay.
teams in the NFC East.
Okay.
All teams on the Northeast. Or Dallas is in Texas.
Sure,
but,
sure,
biggest
sure,
fan base,
sure.
military, whatever.
Yeah.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
A team that has literally stuck through the ups and the downs.
Yeah.
And has had heartbreak and all this stuff and just sticks around. But continue.
Do you agree with the Patriots at number 1?
I think
in the whole entire league.
Well, I mean, hey, isn't it convenient to say that you're a fan of somebody that keeps on winning?
Very convenient.
You know, I mean, it's the hype of it. People are every year when a team, when the Yankees win the World Series, everyone's a Yankee fan. When the
Warriors win,
exactly,
the NBA championship.
It's the hype of it. I don't think it. I can see why.
Do you run into a lot of Patriot fans?
Here?
Yeah.
I can name one friend that's a Patriot fan here in San Diego.
Right, but we can probably name Cowboy fans.
Sure, definitely.
I'm an Eagles fan,
Yeah.
and I know like 8 other Eagles fans.
Yeah. I don't know why.
I know a lot of fans of teams, but I don't run into a lot of Patriot fans.
Well, not only that too, but look at where the Patriots are based out of Boston. I mean, that is a team that is a city rather that knows nothing but winning. Boston Red Sox. I mean, the Patriots, the Bruins, all
Boston
these teams.
Celtics.
Exactly, the Celtics. All that city knows is really good food, beer, and football and sports. So it doesn't surprise me, but I think it's an asterisk next to it. It says should be bandwagoners right next to it. Personally, I don't know why.
I mean, I don't
Cleveland's
see
not
Patriot
on there.
fans travel.
That's what I'm saying.
There's the Browns.
Yeah.
The Steelers.
Yeah.
I know Eagles fans travel.
Yeah.
Cowboys fans, they don't travel. They just live everywhere.
Yeah.
Everyone's a Cowboys
not only
fan,
that,
right?
but Texas is arguably the biggest football state in the country.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you have that in the Texans,
like they're serious about their Pee Wee Pop Warner in Texas, and they always go to all high school games, all college games. So they're serious about their pro game too.
Yeah. But it baffles me rather that the Steelers, Pittsburgh's not on there. I mean, Pittsburgh eats, sleeps, and any team. That's why it doesn't surprise me that it's the East. Any team where people are gritty because it's cold, it snows, when it's half of the year you're outside doing hard, intensive things, laboring things, and the other half of it is you're staying inside and trying to get warm and all this stuff. They eat, sleep, and breathe their sports, right?
There's not a lot to do over there.
That's why there's not that. Right. That's why the Rams aren't on there. I can put the Seahawks up there because of the whole 12th man thing. But you're not going to see teams really from specific locations where it's not about grit kind of thing. But I don't know why.
Like for the Browns fans, selling out every game and they're losing every year.
That's what I'm saying. And it's Cleveland.
Bills do the same thing.
Bills Mafia.
Granted, those teams don't travel as much.
Sure.
It's mostly the Northeastern teams that travel,
Exactly.
and I think that's why you see 3 NFC East teams on here.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of, it's weird.
I agree with the list. In the aspect of it being.
I mean, if you say after the year 2000, I'll agree with the Patriots.
Yeah.
But I probably don't throw Patriots fans, the fan base, in the top half of the league.
Yeah.
That's just me, based on NFL history.
I would legitimately probably put. I mean, the Bears, man.
Bears, the Packers, the Steelers. Those are probably the first 3 teams that come to mind.
Besides the Patriots, right? I agree.
So
it's crazy. What a crazy list, man. But I mean, fans are fans. I mean, I think legitimately hype is the thing. I think when a team wins a lot, especially if it comes to people that you ask them, hey, what's the 2-point conversion? They have no idea, but then you go, what's your favorite sports team? The Patriots. It's easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
fair enough.
I don't negate it. I think it's accurate.
Is what it is.
It is what
Bandwagon,
it is.
mainstream fans.
Bandwagons.
They count too, I guess.
Bandwagons, man.
They put money into it.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, I get it. Just it's a different world you and I live in. We're diehard fans, and so are the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
But Man, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Super cool of you. There'll be plenty of fantasy talk for us.
Oh, yeah. I hate to cut it short, but I mean, you know.
We're all good.
Well, we got all day to talk about it next time, and I'll look forward to listening to everything. So, thanks, man.
Sweet deal, man.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Moving on, the Cowboys. They have some extensions on deck here. The quarterback, running back, wide receiver trio of Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and Amari Cooper. Now, how I rank those players individually might be how you rank them. I have Zeke first, Cooper second, and Prescott third. Zeke, Cooper, Prescott. But when you're talking about money, and if this franchise really is sold on Dak Prescott, it doesn't matter if the rest of us are as fans of other teams or fan of the game in general. It doesn't matter what we think. I'm telling you this. If the Dallas Cowboys think they have the right personality and the right leader in their locker room, wearing their jersey with the C on it, you pay the quarterback that you believe in. You pay him and you keep him around. So Dak Prescott would be the first quarterback if Dallas believes that. If they think that way, they pay Dak Prescott first. That doesn't mean I think that way. I would play a little bit of chicken. I'd let Dak Prescott play out his contract. And if he puts back-to-back seasons together that are great, because remember, that second year, the back-to-back I'm talking about, could be the franchise tag if you're undecided, like the rival Washington Redskins did with Kirk Cousins, which I agreed with at the time. They franchised him multiple times. Now, you may not think Dak is worth the franchise tag, but what if it... Think about it this way. It's worth it when you're still in evaluation mode. It's worth it if you're not sure about 4 or 5 more years of this guy. So then why not? Then I'd say it's absolutely worth it, because then you're evaluating a guy that can possibly be extended to be your franchise quarterback for the long haul. But right now he's still on his rookie contract. I let him play it out. I make him prove it to me. I know the team has made 2 playoff runs, 2 playoff appearances in 3 seasons that Prescott and Elliott have been around. Are they a big part of it? Of course. Those are the 2 guys that have the ball in their hands the most. Yes, huge part of it. That's why they're about to get paid. It's exactly why. But if I'm being honest, individually, Dak Prescott, closer to average than he is good. Then you have the great quarterbacks that are elite. So I think Dak is somewhere between average and good, closer to average. But he shows us those moments. He shows us he can be called upon when needed to throw the ball to score some points. You have to give him that credit. And we are. The second guy I would pay is Amari Cooper. So now we're going in reverse order from what I think they rank individually. Because, look, I wouldn't extend Amari Cooper this offseason, and I'm glad that he just wants to come in, prove himself for a whole year, and then worry about business a year from now. Great. Good mindset to have. You have stuff to prove to yourself, to the team. Boom. Do your thing. Do your thing, Amari. You're a former first-round pick. You started off your career with back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. You struggled for a few after that. You moved on to Dallas. You showed out for them in half a season. You put together a whole season and a half of outstanding football as a wide receiver 1. You're going to get your deal to stay in Dallas. But that's going to be next offseason. The reason I pay Zeke third is because he's the running back, the shorter lifespan position. He's the best player of the 3, the best player on the team. Absolutely. Zeke is a baller. I do have concerns about him getting run-ins with the law because of some bar thing or meeting Goodell. Every offseason it feels like there's always something surrounding him, but nothing too serious. He did serve a 6-game suspension, and it did expose Dak Prescott for what I thought he was. He is who I thought he was. Yet, Zeke plays running back. You see Todd Gurley? I'm worried about Melvin Gordon's knee, which acted up again last season. Dalvin Cook came into the league with a knee injury. It's just not easy. It's not easy to play the game, let alone to rehab and to come back and play that game again when you might not feel like yourself. Be confident as much as you want. I'm all for optimism. It's just a different world. Yeah, it could happen to any player, any day, any team, any position. That's for damn sure. Just playing the odds here. We're talking business. We're talking money. That's why I'd pay Zeke last. And the only way I move him up in this order is if he pulls some Le'Veon Bell situation. Then you have to pay him. Kind of on the spot. Come to some kind of compromise. Don't look like a loser in the public. You're not going to do that as the Dallas Cowboys. That's understandable. We all get it. But if Zeke's game for a franchise tag, for 2 franchise tags, whatever, do it. Why not? The Steelers tried. Bell, he wasn't having it. So I mean, you can try. You can kind of kick the can down the road with Zeke. It may be difficult. I know business is a little bit different nowadays than it was even 5-7 years ago in the National Football League. But that's why I'd wait on Zeke, even though he is their best player. So they say Alex Smith plans to play again, possibly in 2020. Obviously missing this season with that gruesome leg injury. What do you think about Alex Smith, who's comparable to Dak Prescott, mind you? We've seen Alex Smith throw deep for half a season 2 seasons ago in 2017 when Mahomes was watching. He expanded his game a little bit, probably had to, out of necessity. But what do you think? Do you think Alex Smith should return to the field, or do you think he should call it a career? Look, I know it's his decision, and he's the one that's going through the pain and the rehab and all the work and the mental part of it as well. That's probably just as draining. And it's not our decision, but I'm asking you, should Alex Smith return? And you know how you can always reach me. On Twitter, Awol_West. Facebook at Awol Sports. Just hit me up, man. Hit me up. Let me see what you got to say. I actually read it, and I'll actually talk about what you want to talk about. That's just how it goes. You're a diehard. I'm a diehard, and just sharing some information. So we'll move on. Real quick for the record. I think Alex Smith will play again, and I support it. Simple as that. I support it. He only gets to play once, so I think he'll play again. Whether he returns as a starter or not, I would say is a different story. I think someone will, I want to say almost like a Fitzpatrick type role or Tannehill type role, to where you can spot start and all that, possibly compete for the starting role. And that may come to fruition, but initially I believe he'll be brought in somewhere, if it's not in Washington, as a backup. Nothing wrong with that. He can earn his way back to the field if he's back to who he was. Because he is one of the best 32 quarterbacks there is in the game. Like it or not, conservative or not, Alex Smith took care of the football. The 49ers won games, the Chiefs won games. And that's a lot of people's arguments for Dak Prescott. So even with physical limitations, there are other attributes that you can like about quarterbacks like that. The pass interference rule, where all calls and non-calls will be reviewable for the 2019 season. It was a 31-1 vote by the owners? Are you kidding me? Talk about an overreaction to the Saints. Non-call, pass interference. Yes, be pissed off. Be pissed off. All 32 teams would be raging right now. Still, New Orleans is pissed. And they should be. Any other team in that situation would be. We all understand that. I just think it's opening up a can of worms. This includes Hail Marys. It's there's still only 2 challenges for coaches, and if they win both, they still get the third. I do like that that's still intact, because coaches can't just throw out that flag left and right. You only get 2, 3 at the most. So I understand that. I like that. I just think it's still a can of worms. Hail Mary, Aaron Rodgers is great at those. Or you have Big Ben and Tom Brady. You always see during the regular season. Even in the playoff game, they'll make that deep throw on the inexperienced player, and it might not be a completion. But they're going to hope to pick on an inexperienced player, get a huge play downfield, pass interference on the defense, changes field position, gives your offense momentum. And those are some of the plays that are going to get challenged. Some of the non-calls. I just think it's a can of worms. Is it acceptable? Yes, it's acceptable because of, the limitations of the challenges. 2 or 3. That's why this is an acceptable rule. Is it just? Well, you can run out of challenges. Calls are going to be missed, and then coaches are going to be, kind of questioning whether to challenge it or not. So, nothing's going to be just. Nothing's going to be absolutely fair. But this is still a can of worms to me, and an overreaction. This is why I've been saying off the air to everyone around me and on the blog, the league needs to assign 1 replay official per game. Sitting in a booth, watching all the angles. Could be at the game in a booth, or in New York at their headquarters, or even at home remotely with their whole setup there. You're telling me the NFL can't hire 16 officials, or even if you wanted that guy to have a backup, whatever, 32? I think 1 per game's fine, so 16 officials a week dedicated to each game. And yeah, the buys come in, so whatever, but we don't have to deal with that. The league does. So you assign an official per game, and just having him watch as much as he can. On the spot, make a correction. Or make a quicker replay call. Send it in downfield. You see it on the fly? Cool, call it. Boom. Maybe you need an extra moment? Sweet. But you're not holding up everyone on the field, at least those officials. So you make the call, you let them know, and then we proceed with the game. Big Brother in the NFL should be an absolute must. If you want to get calls right, that's the answer. If you want to keep the game shorter than it should, shorter than longer because of the replays and whatever, Big Brother helps. I'm not a fan of it in life in general, but here we're talking sports, talking a contest. You guys want the calls to be correct? Then why not? I think there were other rules that should get attended to, like the roughing the passer that just gets ridiculously out of line. We've seen a lot of times where, you breathe on a quarterback, 15 yards. On 3rd down, really? You're going to call that? Did you even see what happened? Are you just listening to a quarterback bark at you? Or you just see him holding his wrist on the ground and kind of feel the urgency to throw a flag? That's something that can be solved by Big Brother. Someone on the field calls it, you stop play for like 30 seconds. The guy, even 15, he can tell you, nope, no chance. That was not roughing the passer. Instead of 1st and 10, it's still 3rd and 15, incomplete pass. They're punting. And then the other rule, we've seen the catch rule change, and I think that was the biggest thing. I'm glad that they changed it. We saw Megatron, the retired Calvin Johnson, get like 2 or 3 touchdowns taken away because of that, not completing a catch or whatever. Des Bryant on the Cowboys against the Packers in the playoffs. We've seen multiple instances of this. Those are just some of the highlighted ones. I'm glad they fixed it, and we saw it as early as the 2017 Super Bowl. Corey Clement in the end zone gets that teardrop from Nick Foles back of the end zone. He grabs it with one hand, switches it to the other. Refs still call it a touchdown. Play under review. Call is upheld. Touchdown it is. And I'm happy for it. So I'm happy that the league wants to be better, wants to be more efficient. Hopefully they listen to this, or hopefully you let them know, hey, Big Brother is needed. One official per game. Let's get things right in a timely manner. The other rule everyone will be talking about probably till we're blue in the face is the overtime rule. If they had done anything this year, I would have called it an overreaction. The whole New England Patriots, Kansas City Chiefs, they go to overtime. Pat Mahomes doesn't touch the ball. Of course, he was MVP of the league. Tom Brady gets the ball first, scores, and ball game. There's always going to be talk about, what if we did this instead? Like, where do we draw the line? Can't we be happy that the NFL opened it up to you have to score a touchdown on that first drive to end the game? Because if you go back to the controversy in New Orleans against the Rams on that non-pass interference call, that game went into overtime, didn't it? The Saints received the ball, didn't they? Drew Brees threw a pick, right? The Saints still had chances. They still had chances to win the game. Pat Mahomes didn't. So totally a different situation. And yeah, you can go back, the Saints would have won in regulation, whatever. Who knows? I get it. I get all the arguments, all the sides. It's been long enough to where we can see every angle of this thing. All I'm saying is they overreact to the Saints non-PI call, and I'm glad that they didn't overreact to Mahomes not touching the ball in overtime. Look, it's a team game. It's a team game. And we're seeing more ties than ever before in overtime. Granted, it's only in the regular season. I just think, the whole field goal thing, I think, is great. The NFL expanded that. These are professionals. This isn't college. It should be more buttoned up. Maybe we can revisit this conversation, and maybe we can say no matter what, each team gets one possession. I get that. Maybe what, that might be what we all come to a compromise to at some point, I would think. But as for me, I like the way it is right now. You score a touchdown in OT, that's a wrap. And I'm cool with that. All right, some red zone observations. So we're going to start at the helm, quarterbacks. Some guys we talked a lot about today, Patrick Mahomes, Andrew Luck. Not only did they lead football in touchdown passes, the red zone was no different. Red zone touchdowns, those two were the best, followed by Russell Wilson. And something interesting when you look at all Russell Wilson's stats, he's the bottom half of the league in terms of pass attempts. And, he's third in red zone touchdowns. So very efficient usage of Russell Wilson and his skill set. He's very accurate in the red zone. And, he puts it on the money when he gets down there. He converts red zone trips into points. Just what you notice, though, is he doesn't throw a lot. Dak Prescott threw more passes than Russell Wilson. The Seahawks ran the most in all of football. That might not change too much either. That might be who they are for this season as well. Carson Wentz, he had 18, tied with Tom Brady, Mitch Trubisky, and he played 5 less games. So 18 red zone touchdowns. That sounds a little unimpressive for Tom Brady. And that's an average of 1.5. So if, say, Wentz finishes the season, he finishes third, ahead of Russell Wilson, only behind the 2 MVP candidates, and, Wentz was one before, he would have finished second. Man, he's pretty good. I expect him to have a big year. Ben Roethlisberger in the red zone, only 56% completion rate. That's 18th in the league. We're seeing the dip here. We're seeing the dip in Big Ben as far as completion rate, leadership, losing 2 Pro Bowlers in the same offseason. That's a big hit. And in the red zone, he actually tied with Case Keenum with the most picks. He threw 4 interceptions in the red zone. We all know about that one where supposedly AB didn't run the right depth of his route, yet Big Ben throws a pick to a defensive tackle. Okay, Ben. I've been a fan of you throughout your career, but you're dipping, and I jumped off the bandwagon a year ago. Aaron Rodgers, middle of the pack with 16 touchdowns in the red zone. That should increase, you would think, in a more creative offense and the young wide receivers with more experience. Maybe a second year with Jimmy Graham helps that cause as well. And then Drew Brees, as usual, efficient, 72%. Then the other side of the spectrum, Dak Prescott, 51% completion rate in the red zone. I mean, I would expect that not out of the Cowboys offense. Think about it. I'm not all over Dak Prescott as a good quarterback, closer to average, you know that. But damn, you have Ezekiel Elliott. You have that offensive line. You have the play action. And you're only completing half of your passes? That's very alarming to me. You can't run all the time. The field gets shortened. And since the field gets shortened, the corners come up. There's more bump on the wide receivers. And you got to be accurate. And apparently he hasn't been. He is who I think he is. Especially in the red zone. But there is a flip side to that. There is a flip side. Prescott, he uses his feet. He does have that mobility, and he was second out of all quarterbacks with 6 touchdowns. He actually had 1 more touchdown than Zeke, who had 5. And we're only talking red zone here, not total touchdowns, but red zone touchdowns. Prescott had 6, Zeke had 5. The other quarterback, who actually was first in rushing touchdowns, none other than Josh Allen. Over in Buffalo, Josh Allen, I like him a lot. I think he's a developing leader. I think he wills the Bills, or last season at least, he willed the Bills to very competitive football when he was in the lineup. He's got like 4 running backs, a couple veteran receivers to grow with. They're not too old. They're, middle-aged and for pro football. So yeah, Allen at 7. Then we had Prescott at 6. As for the other quarterbacks on that list, to round out the top 5, Deshaun Watson, 5 rushing touchdowns, tied with someone. Deshaun tied with 5. Can you guess that quarterback? Now I'm going to throw out a bunch of options here. Got Russell Wilson, Cam Newton. Aaron Rodgers was banged up, but he likes to move around a little bit. Carson Wentz is banged up. He likes to move around a little bit. Baker Mayfield on the run. Jared Goff can move some. So, there's a lot of quarterbacks. You go down to Tennessee, you got Marcus Mariota, who's in a make it or break it year. Nonetheless, Mariota uses his legs to scramble. So if you haven't guessed yet, TikTok, time's up. Now, this might be a play action on you, but think of the QB sneak. Does that wipe out a lot of your guys? Maybe wipes out like the list I named. Maybe Mitch Trubisky. It's Drew Brees. Drew Brees tied Deshaun Watson for 3rd in rushing touchdowns at the quarterback position. He is one of the best QB sneakers of all time, I will say that, Drew Brees. And then to round out the top 5 is Lamar Jackson. He had 4. In half the season, he was a terror on the ground. Unfortunately, as a rookie, one-dimensional offense in Baltimore last season, they keep promising they're going to open things up. I'm not going to buy their words, though. I'm not going to buy anything they're saying. I think they're a one-dimensional offense until further notice. I think they're a physical team, will wear you down, play great defense. They can run the football pretty well. If you stack that box, you're going to feel them, and even if they're only getting 2 or 3 yards per carry. I don't expect a lot of points in Baltimore. I think they're around a 500 ball club. They do have upside, if they can use Hollywood Brown down the field and get some bombs and score some touchdowns and stretch the field that way. They might have a similar year as the last, similar success. I just don't see it. Moving on to the running backs. In the red zone, Todd Gurley led the league with 17 red zone touchdowns on the ground, followed by Kamara's 13. Derrick Henry and James Conner each had 10. And then we have Chris Carson over in Seattle. He gets 9, tied with Marlon Mack of the Colts and Jordan Howard of the Bears, who is now on the Eagles. So these are the tough runners, the grinders: Gurley, Kamara, Henry, Conner, Carson, Mack, Howard. They say Gurley might get a decrease in workload. I'll say this: if they paid him, and he might get 4 or 5 less touches a game, or maybe they'll convert those rushes into receptions. We'll find out. But Gurley's going to be used in the red zone. Whether he gets 17 red zone scores or not, different story. We'll find out. We'll see how the knee progresses over the course of the season. But he's going to be the red zone guy. Kamara, red zone threat last year, even with Mark Ingram healthy in the lineup, not suspended after those 4 games. Kamara was their go-to. Now they have Latavius Murray. I don't see him really being a threat to the amount of touches they want to give to Kamara. Ingram did snag half a dozen touchdowns in there, but I believe it was 7, but that would have put Kamara at 19, 20 touchdowns. Jeez. Just in the red zone, not even counting the home run plays. So you got Derrick Henry. I expect Henry to take another leap forward as a running back. I know they have third down back Dion Lewis, but at least on the first 2 downs, Mariota's in a make-or-break year, and if he gets pulled or injured, it's going to be Ryan Tannehill, who's on a new team, but also in make-or-break kind of mode. And, I think the Titans went young at wide receiver. They have 2 now. And then they bring back Delaney Walker from injury at tight end, and we know they have a top 5 O-line in the game. I mean, if the Titans could open the field up just a little bit, I think Derrick Henry is going to have room to operate. I think, that's the type of football they want to play. Derrick Henry, in your face, downhill. To a lesser extent, James Conner, that 10 kind of surprises me, but then, we just went over the Big Ben stat. He's completing 56% in the red zone. Now it makes sense. Conner had double-digit touchdowns as we went over, and man, he had a great first year as the unexpected starter. Balled out, got nicked up, missed a couple games, but he's a tough kid. He's fun to watch. He's exciting. He really is. He was posting numbers that were on a better trajectory than Le'Veon Bell was, who is now out of town. And then Chris Carson, Seattle ran the most in football. Rashad Penny, first-round pick, had some issues, injuries, maybe some conditioning, I don't know, but kind of a guess there. Carson took advantage of the opportunity, and he's fully implemented into this offense moving forward. You have Marlon Mack, who, they welcomed him with open arms when he wasn't hurt, lower leg injury, and Mack came through for them. He really did. They like to use more than one back. Mack's not the only guy. He's not in a 3-down back role at this point in time, but he's gonna get some red zone touches and the chance to replicate 9 touchdowns. Jordan Howard takes his 9 from Chicago to Philly. Howard, he'll get the first crack at the snaps and the touches that Jay Ajayi was receiving before he went down to his knee injury. When that happened, and then the Eagles also lost Darren Sproles. They were kind of one-dimensional, relying on undrafted free agents. First it was Corey Clement, and then he hurt his knee, and then it was Josh Adams, another undrafted guy. He led the team in rushing, but it was kind of an underwhelming ground game. So Howard takes that 9 over to the Eagles. And really, in the red zone, the Eagles' top 4 backs from last season combined for 10. So they think they're getting an instant upgrade, and that's what the numbers say as well. As for some other backs on the ground in the red zone, David Johnson should score more than 7. In Denver, Philip Lindsay scored 6 in comparison to Royce Freeman's 5. I mean, that actually might be similar this season, like it or not. Remember, you got to know the kind of guy John Elway has been. Very prideful. He believes he has the answers. Probably happy to pick up Philip Lindsay. He's an undrafted free agent out of Colorado, hometown kid. No one else knew about him. So you give him some credit for picking him up. Lindsay gets the rest of the credit for that season he had as a rookie. Freeman, he's still going to be integrated into this offense. He still is. 3rd-round pick. Liked him a lot. He played good. It's just that PL played great. Leonard Fournette, I think he's a guy that should have a bounce-back year. He has a competent quarterback now in Nick Foles. He had 5 red zone touchdowns. I think that number goes up. The defense is still good. The defense will actually get a break from having a competent quarterback as well. The offense and defense play hand in hand, kind of ball control, and get after you. So Fournette had a handful. I expect that number to go up, which is good for fantasy football owners. Nick Chubb, I think he gets more than 5 as well. He didn't play the whole season, and he only had 45% of the red zone carries. Melvin Gordon, surprisingly, in the Charger backfield, only had 40% of the red zone carries. I think his number goes up, so I see Fournette, Chubb, and Gordon all scoring more than 5 touchdowns in the red zone. And let's wrap things up with the wide receiver position. Red zone touchdowns, it goes a little like this. Whoa, actually, it's not just wide receivers here. Let's just say passing targets. Devontae Adams led the league with 12. Whew. Now they have a more creative offense. Interesting. Devontae Adams is going to ball again. The next 2 guys, tight ends, Eric Ebron, 11, second in all of football, 11 red zone touchdowns from Andrew Luck. I get Jack Doyle comes back. They also signed Devin Funchess. Luck's shoulder, another year removed from that major injury, so he might be targeting T.Y. Hilton downfield more. But we just went over all the weapons. They have a lot of guys. They have Marlon Mack, and the Colts have a lot of guys. And Eric Ebron's 11, although that sounds high, that could be replicated. I'd bet against it. I'd bet the under. But Ebron could have another very successful season, full of celebrations. And the other back, their change of pace back, Nyheim Hines, he gets touches in the red zone too, mostly passes. It's going to be tough. If teams want to start double teaming Ebron, I think the Colts and Luck are good and smart enough to go elsewhere and to still score. All right, and then Travis Kelce follows that with 9, another tight end. DeAndre Hopkins, 8 touchdowns. Then you got Michael Thomas tied with Mike Williams of the Chargers, Zach Ertz, tight end of the Eagles, and James White, running back of the Patriots. So Michael Thomas, Mike Williams, Zach Ertz, James White all have 7 red zone touchdowns receiving. Wow. So on that list right there, we got Adams, Ebron, Kelce, Hopkins, Thomas, Williams, Ertz, and White. That's 8 players 4 of those are not wide receivers. That's an interesting stat there. Ebron, Kelsey, Ertz being the tight ends, and then White being the running back. And then, of course, the receivers, Adams, Hopkins, Michael Thomas, Mike Williams. Stars that should see an increase in their red zone touchdowns. Juju Smith-Schuster, Odell Beckham Jr., you each had 5. That number is going up. And then another player, this one a veteran, closer to his way out of the door, is Larry Fitzgerald. Scored 5 touchdowns last season, gets a new quarterback, a new offense. Would you take the over or the under for Larry Fitzgerald at 5 touchdowns? Air raid attack, they're going to pass. The quarterback's going to be allowed to run. They got David Johnson. They have some young receivers like Christian Kirk. It's going to take them time, but hey, they're working with one of the best to learn from. That's Larry Fitz. Does he get more than 5? I mean, I kind of consider that number to be the cap, to be honest with you, which doesn't bode well for their offense as a whole. So, if they're going to be successful, they got to find a way to get Fitz involved early, often in the red zone, in the end zone. I mean, if things are going great in Arizona and things are rolling, that number could be over 5 for Fitz, but I'm gonna take the under here. And then a couple other players, young players, 6 red zone touchdowns, and I bet you didn't know. Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Cameron Brate. Now, Cameron Brate, number may decrease as O.J. Howard, he's one of those players. Got to show he can stay on the field. I believe he will. O.J. Howard has great breakaway speed. Cameron Brate, he's been so reliable. A quarterback's best friend, especially when Jameis Winston is in the lineup, and he will be the guy to enter the season with Bruce Arians. I don't think Cameron Brate's going to go away. I just don't see him maintaining 6 touchdowns in the red zone. Chris Godwin, his teammate, also had half a dozen. No Deshaun Jackson, no Adam Humphries. It's just going to be his show with Mike Evans and the 2 tight ends we just spoke about. While that number of 6 touchdowns may stay the same, he's going to get the opportunities to score more than that. We'll put it that way. If he capitalizes, you're going to be happy if he's on your fantasy football roster. And then Calvin Ridley, 6. I actually think that number's going to go up. He's got Julio Jones. Matt Ryan finally has a solidified left side of the offensive line. Doesn't have to peek over his blind side a little bit anymore. Calvin Ridley, over 800 yards as a rookie. I think that number will increase. Then you have Jaron Brown. Now on the Seattle Seahawks, had 5 touchdowns through the air. I think he can maintain that. I really do. Chris Conley, Jaron Brown's going to be in a rotation. They got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, so he won't be the only guy. He won't be the primary target, but I think he's found a little niche there. And then on to Chris Conley, who also had 5. Conley had a good year. He really did. I didn't have him on my fantasy team or anything like that. He's on the Jacksonville Jaguars now, developing some rapport, I'm assuming, with Nick Foles. Reportedly, he had the best training, OTA and minicamp of all the Jaguar wide receivers, which is a good sign for a veteran receiver. He's a former 3rd-round pick. He only had over 300 yards receiving, 10 yards per catch. He's still developing as a player. Marquise Lee is still recovering from his knee injury. But Conley's going to have a chance to replicate that 5 touchdown effort. And then to round this list out with the other guys that caught 5 red zone scores, that's Zay Jones over in Buffalo. He is, you would think now with the addition of Cole Beasley and then the plethora of running backs and then the mobility of Josh Allen, Zay Jones, 5 touchdowns, you would think that could be a maintainable number for him. John Ross and Tyler Boyd, teammates, both on the Bengals, both got to play a little bit more with the injury to A.J. Green. Ross and Boyd, I'd say Boyd's more of a route runner. Ross is more of the burner. You're either going to throw short or long to Ross. But Boyd's going to be the starter, by the way, with Green. And then next guy is Trey Burton of the Bears. Him and his teammate Anthony Miller, both young players, Combined, they had 10 touchdowns from Mitchell Trubisky. And, the Bears are mostly a defensive team and kind of a gadgety offense. I think Trey Burton's 5 is maintainable. Anthony Miller, I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I'm not really doubting his talent. The Bears like him a lot. I'm just not sure whether it be Trubisky as a passer, whether it be Anthony Miller himself in the red zone in particular, whether it's, can Allen Robinson get back to where he was as a Jaguar? He's a second year removed from a knee injury. They expect him to be better, and if he is, that makes things easier for everybody else, including Anthony Miller. Alrighty, diehards, that's going to do it for this podcast episode. We went over the red zone scores for quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. We went over some of the rules, such as the pass interference, both calls and non-calls being reviewable for this season. Let me know what you think. We went over who the Dallas Cowboys should pay. Again, my order is Prescott, Cooper, Zeke, because of the position of Zeke being a running back, shorter lifespan. Do you think Alex Smith is going to play football again? Not this season, of course, but beyond that. And then Tyreke Hill. Are the Chiefs a playoff team if Tyreke Hill misses 8 games? There's nothing official yet, just a number I threw out. And do you think Josh Gordon plays more games, less games than Tyreke Hill this year? Alrighty, diehards, that'll do it. Again, you can catch me on Twitter at AWOL_West or Facebook, AWOL Sports. And I guess it's time to get out of here. I'm out.